Well, Carl's a great guy. I always go along great with him. I haven't seen him in forever. He's blind in one eye. I believe it's the left eye. Well, anyway, I had been, when we first launched the Dean character, I was like 2 or 3 months just doing vignettes. I wasn't on the road. This was the first loop I'd be on the road. And I was traveling with PJ as Aldo Montoya and Tammy and Chris. And we were staying at the Days Inn by the Montreal airport. We got to the building as we were walking in. When you walked into the old Molson Center, I think it's torn down now, right? It's not. I think it's a different building.
The Forum is torn down. Now it's the Molson Center.
Oh,
it's called the Bell Center, I think now.
Okay, well, when you walked into the old Forum, I guess it was, there was like the hallway, like sort of, went from the doorway and like went down like a semicircle. And there were 2 dressing rooms on the left, a little bit, one staggered up higher. And I went to walk into one of those rooms, and Shawn grabbed me by the shirt and he said, "No, you don't dress there, you dress with us." So I followed them down past the Zamboni machine. They dressed where the Canadiens dressed. And so I walked in, having no clue about the politics of the place. I was just first on the road. And I opened my bag up, and the dressing room door was here, bench, and the lockers and things. And so I opened my bag up, and Shawn is standing right here in front of me, and Kevin Nash comes walking over, and Shawn asks him, "What are you going to do tonight?" Now, the setup to that whole story was Montreal had been slowly declining, dropping. And Carl, who's from there, pulled in a lot of favors, did a lot of local press, and busted his ass. And Vince had booked him in the main event against Kevin. Well, if you do a clean finish, done. You're not going to draw anything next month or 6 months from now. So
because they were going to Montreal, I think 4 times a year at that point or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And so Kevin said to Shawn, Vince wants some kind of a hot finish so we can do a return. Shawn said, "Fuck what Vince McMahon wants." He said, and again, this took place. It wasn't like I was hearing this like over a cell phone, like the Holmes said with the president the other day. I was watching it and listening to it right in front of me, and he said, "Fuck what Vince McMahon wants." And Kevin started, saying the right thing. He said, "Well, if I beat him clean, I can't really do a return." And Shawn, look it up, because Kevin's so damn big. He said, "Let me ask you a question. When you worked with the champion, did you put the champion over clean here?" And he said, "Well, yeah," but he goes, "No buts." He said, "Fuck what Vince McMahon wants." He said, "Beat this piece of shit." He kept going, jackknife, 1, 2, 3. He kept doing it over and over again. So he turns to walk out, and as Shawn's walking out, pulls the door open, Carl's walking in. And it was my first eye-opening thing, because Shawn had just been talking shit on Carl, who's a pretty good kid with his hands, pretty tough.
Wouldn't back down.
No, for sure, for damn sure. And opens the door, and he sees, "Hey, Carl, how you doing?" It becomes instant friend, right? So I'm wondering, well, that's strange. And so he comes walking in. Now Shawn looks like he's walking out, whichever side Carl's blind on. Shawn walks out the door and then comes right back in, and he's standing behind Carl on his blind side. So now imagine what I'm seeing. Here's Kevin, here's Carl, and right behind Carl is Shawn pantomiming to Kevin what to say. So I'm watching this, and Carl says, "So what do you want to do tonight, Kevin?" And he goes, "Well," and meanwhile Shawn's behind him going, pantomiming it. So I'm watching this, and I'm what the hell's going on here, And finally, Kevin sheepishly, after several minutes going back and forth, Kevin said, "I don't know, I was thinking maybe just like a jackknife." And Carl goes, "No, we can't do a jackknife. Vince needs a some hot finish." And Shawn turns and leaves. So I was going to get a draw. So I walk up to one of the other dressing rooms up above, and I walk in, and Carl, as I was leaving, I heard Carl say, let's go talk to the agent. So they're walking behind me. So I walk into the room waiting to talk to the agent to get my draw, and Shawn says, "Excuse me, everybody, excuse me. Can I have your attention, please? My name's Shawn Micheals. They call me the Heartbreak Kid." He goes, "This is Carl. They call him Pierre." He said, Pierre here has a problem doing a job for a champion tonight. And Carl goes, Shawn, what are you talking about? I don't have a problem doing a job. And he goes, no, we already heard what you said. And, now Carl starts to move into, and everybody, of course, starts pulling them apart. So that night after the show,
it was a double DQ or something.
Some crap finish, and we were at the Days Inn. It was the hotel was one of those hotels where, like, literally from my doorway I could reach out and touch the front desk. We were right off the front desk. Me and PJ were in the first room. The second room was Tammy and Chris. So as we're walking in, PJ's already gone into the room. Tammy and Chris have gone in, and I'm getting ready to walk in. The Kliq walks in, and they're down the other end of the hall from us. So they tapped me on the shoulder. Who did, I can't recall, but one of them tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, we're in room whatever. We ordered pizza and beer. Come on down. We want to talk to you. So now remember, in NWA, I had been traveled with and friends with Scott. In WWF in 1990, me and Shawn were close friends, I thought. In fact, Shawn and Marty and me and Dustin Rhodes, everybody called us the Four Amigos. So, and I knew Hunter from the NWA a little bit. I didn't really know X-Pac. Knew Kevin a little bit from the NWA. So I had no reason not to go down there. And I walked into the room, and I can remember Kevin was laying on the bed, and everybody else was milling about the room. And they said, what do you think about the shit that happened in the building tonight? I said, what are you talking about? They said, with Carl. I said, well, he made sense. I said, you do a clean job, you can't do a return. And Shawn goes, see, I told you, everybody, Shane understands the business. And then he starts to proceed to tell me how things are different in the WWF. And so, I knew enough not to say anything more. I just started listening, and they all started ramping up, like how they could reseat Carl. All because Carl wanted to do what the boss, the guy that owns the company, said they would do. And he was right. You do a clean finish, you're done, no return. So they all started like, we should, do this to him, we should do that to him. Kevin picked the phone up and started dialing the phone. He goes, I'm just going to call Vince and tell him to fire him. And to this day, I can't remember which one did which.
They had that much power back then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was. My first thought, I think, in hindsight, was they're working me, to make me think they have this much power. And Shawn, it was, Hunter stayed out of it, X-Pac stayed out of it, other than a few comments here and there. Either Shawn or Scott went over and hung the phone up and said, no, let's think about this for a while. And they started ramping up again, getting stiffer and stiffer. Finally, whichever one didn't hang the phone up, because one did one and the other did the other, said, I got it. Let's call Vince and tell him to starve his fucking ass for 3 years. And I remember thinking to myself, I felt like I was watching a woman being raped. I wanted to go get out of it and go take a shower. It was so disgusting to me. As these guys that are being flown first class, picked up in limousines, making money out the ass, as guys like Carl who are schlepping it, you've been there and done it, driving hundreds of, sometimes thousands of miles, crammed in the middle seat in the back of the plane, making an okay paycheck. And they want to starve this guy who has a family because he wants to do what the boss that owns the company said to do. To this day, it
send him
repulses
to Memphis too, didn't they?
That's right.
And where they were hardly paying people anything.
That's correct. Yeah, right after that. So, yeah, pretty disgusting.
I'm replacing IRS, Mike Rotundo against Shawn, and the George the Animal still's the agent, and he's telling me that I gotta do the job for Shawn, and I'm still talking to Jacques a bit, and Jacques is telling me, if you do a job now in Montreal, you're finished, your career's down the drain, you're not going to be able to be something worth something anymore. So I kind of tell Shawn that I don't want to do the job, so he really get pissed off. He says, fuck, man, you're a fucking idiot. He said, just 30 guys just put me over and the Royal Rumble, and you don't want a fucking job for me, and you're sitting at home, and then I let it sunk in, talk about it. I said, okay, I'll do it, and I made a frictions, for 10, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, because I put the argument that I was not comfortable doing the job for him. I didn't say, like, I'm not going to do it. I said, I'm not comfortable doing it. But it made a little something that stayed there after that. You know, I did it. I slammed him, or I did a backbreaker. I had one of my best match ever. By the way, I rate him as the best worker. I mean, him and Brett, they're my two favorites. But Shawn's probably the best. I mean, he's so light on everything. I pressed him. I did all kinds. We had a hell of a match. You know, he was really motivated to have a great match. And so anyway, I do a backbreaker on the cement floor. I go to the second row. I do the cannonball. He moves out. I hit the cement floor, throws me in. He does a slingshot with the feet on the top rope, 1, 2, 3. Beats me like that. So, which is a good, you know, ending and everything. But nobody remembers that today, you know, for the boys at home that cares about doing the jobs here and there sometimes. People don't remember after 2 weeks what happened.
So that kind of initiated the heat.
Yeah,
And,
was a little seed planted there as far as heat with the Kliq.
and then
I don't think about that. Probably nothing came back to Vince that much because I did the job and I did the great match, and it's an awesome match, and I fill out the space, you know, for IRS where I didn't have to do it. You know, I was sitting at home. I said yes to it, you know. So I was being a good businessman. So they rewarded me with 8 months undefeated as the Lafitte gimmick. And then probably Shawn had told Kevin about something. And a month before the title match in Montreal, Nash came up to me and says, next month, it's me and you at the Forum. The show wasn't advertised yet. So I figured, how the fuck does he know the finish already? He said, next month, it's me and you, main event. I know nothing.
because house show matches, you're not told that.
It's a house show match.
Usually.
It's me and you. It's the main event. 8 minutes, big boot to the face, jackknife, 1, 2, 3, my friend. And that worked me up big time. I went up to Sid. I said, fuck, this motherfucker he knows that. How can he calls me? It's finished right away, a month in advance before the show. Fuck that, I'm not gonna do it. You know, he's so fucking arrogant. You know, I hate his fucking guts. A fucking piece of shit, you know, and fuck, I was really, really, really mad at the whole situation. And of course, when the night came in, I totally refused to job against him. And that was like, the whole dressing room wanted to fucking stab me, I guess. I don't know, like, everybody came up to me, come on, you gotta be business, gotta do this, gotta do this. I said, no, man. I said, if I'm gonna do this fucking job tonight, might as well just pick up my bag now and just leave and go home. Never come back into this business, and you're just gonna jerk off with your fucking main event, you know. So everybody was calling, you know, the agents, higher agents, Vince to the other agents, and trying to talk me into it. And I never wanted to do it. We did the double count out. And I told that story so many times, but when we were walking towards I don't know, it's a curtain match, you know, for the boys. Everybody's at the curtain waiting for the fight to explode, you know, because he's 7 foot tall. He should fucking kick my ass.
And he is tough, really. He was a bouncer for many years before wrestling.
But anyways, we just we started the match okay. Man, at the end, walking towards the curtain, every forearms was stiffer and stiffer and making more noise. And the next day, I had to work against him in Quebec City.
But it was cool in Montreal.
Montreal?
Yeah.
I don't know. Everybody was on the phone with Vince trying to get me fired.
Oh, after, but like the match itself, there was no...
I was stiff.
Yeah, just
stiff, but no injuries.
Yeah, you followed the game plan of the match.
I followed my game plan.
Yeah.
I always tried to get along with everybody. I remember hearing, even back then, they would say, I guess it was Chief Jay Strongbow that said, in this business you can either make money or make friends. Well, apparently I made a lot of friends because I didn't make no money. But I always tried to be friends with everybody, and including the guys from the Kliq that I thought were dickheads sometimes, most of the time. I thought they were arrogant. I thought they had too much control in that company, but there was nothing you could do about it unless you kind of raised your own stock by doing something. But I tried to get along, but many times that I found myself out at clubs or in bars with those guys or different combinations of them, and there were instances where, and he's already talked about this on his own, but Shawn Micheals was pretty messed up back then as well, and there was times where I found myself babysitting him and Scott Hall sometimes and getting them out of bars because they were so messed up and into potential fight situations on a number of occasions. I was kind of like not the designated driver, even though I was that too. I was the least fucked up of the bunch, I guess, at that time when I would hang out with them. But I was also, if Kevin Nash wasn't around, or some of those other guys, I was kind of like the bodyguard that I would just kind of hang around and make sure nobody messed with Shawn or Scott, or if Waltman was around. From time to time I would do that.
Because I've heard Scott Hall himself say that Shawn didn't care that much about getting beat up, and he would actually try and be rude sometimes. Like, he wouldn't care about being rude, even if it was a situation he couldn't win.
There was times where he, again, it was arrogance, and when he got messed up, it kind of got worse. I told the story about this time I can't remember where it was. Times I'm bad with dates and I'm bad with towns, but I remember we were at a bar, and I think it was like Washington somewhere, but anyway, Shawn was messed up, and it was just me, him, and I think Scott Hall was there, and I told this story, but there was a group of dudes in this bar, man. They were pretty big, and they were drunk. We were all messed up, and Shawn was really messed up, and he started talking shit to them, and they didn't like it. I think he was saying something like they weren't going to get laid because we were there. Basically, the wrestlers were there, and they didn't have a chance. And these guys were pissed. But what ended up happening is they wanted to fight. They really wanted to fight. And I just remember what I ended up doing. The biggest one, I grabbed him by his ears and I kissed him on the lips. This big drunk dude in a bar. I grabbed him and I kissed him on the lips and stunned him. Basically long enough for me to grab Shawn and get us out of there, because there was a big group of them. There was a bunch of them. There was probably like 6 of them, and they didn't know quite what to do when I did that, but it worked. So, and I didn't have to get in a fight.
So you were gone by the time that Syracuse incident happened, I guess?
No, I was there, but I wasn't on that loop.
Oh, okay.
I remember sitting with Shawn and Kevin Nash afterwards and telling Shawn, well, if I was there, that shit wouldn't have happened. I don't know if it would have or not. I don't even know if I would have been with him that night, but I tried, even if I didn't necessarily like somebody personally, you always try to kind of look out for the boys.
So there was a lot of talk. You were part of the Kliq backstage.
Yeah.
Do you have any, how did you get involved? Is it because of Hall at this point?
It was because of Hall, at first. Of course, I was everywhere Scott was. So, it was just people, and they ask me this all the time on the internet, and I find it kind of weird. The Kliq is, it has become something that was monetized, that was merchandised by the WWF, or WWE, I should say now. But it really wasn't. It was just a group of guys who got along. Like, for example, when Hunter first came to WWF, he brought Chyna. Chyna was nothing like she looked like in the, at the end. And we all traveled together. Nobody traveled, nobody wanted to travel with Hunter. It's like we all kind of stuck together, and Scott, Kevin, and Shawn, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Micheals, found some value in Triple H and Paul Levesque. So it's like we all kind of gravitated towards one another.
Being involved with the Kliq, did that help you with your standing with the office at WWE?
I don't think so.
No, think it matters.
No, because I didn't have as much as being a part of the Kliq or whatever. It was more of a friendship. I mean, it gets so overblown today, and it's more legend than anything else. But those guys all had assets. The 1-2-3 Kid was the 1-2-3 Kid. Razor Ramon was Razor Ramon. Nash was, Diesel was Diesel. The list goes on. Hunter was Hunter. Razor was Razor. I was still Aldo.
So backstage, there was a lot of heat about the Kliq.
Yes.
Did you receive any because you were a bit of the newer
Yes.
member and the less power?
Yes. A lot of heat, but I was protected.
Okay.
No,
Any stories?
No particular stories, unfortunately. I mean, I would like to make it juicy, but no, they knew better, They'd kind of, I would get a little, like kind of looked at like, but they wouldn't dare touch me. It's almost, back then it was so rough because it was still a very tough man's game, and I was a little guy at the time. I'm not so little anymore, but at the time I was, and you really had to pick a side, and it was still very much, if you didn't have allies, you had enemies, and because of that friendship, nobody would dare cross my path, and I was fortunate for that at least,
I understand you were backstage during the infamous curtain call moment.
Yes.
With the Kliq breaking kayfabe and hugging in the ring in Madison Square Garden.
I was.
Were you invited to be part of that?
I was invited. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And I was told, you'll never survive this.
Oh.
If you go out there, you're done.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. If you go out there, you're done. Because I had no bargaining power. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They all had names, and what comes with names is television time, investment, action figures, video games. I had nothing of that nature. So I was easily, it would have been a cool moment for me, but if I'd have done that, I would have been gone without a job.
So you didn't get involved?
I was told not to get involved.
Okay.
And, I don't regret it. Everything happens for a reason. And, it's a great soundbite. And it's funny how they use it today, right? But if you would have done it back then, it was a whole different vibe, because we were in a whole different war. Not that I hate to say war, because that's a very serious word, but a very serious competition. And that would have not been right for me to do. I was not in the right position to do that.
What did it mean to you to be part of the Kliq after all? Like, was this...
At first, I thought it meant the world to me. Mm-hmm. I felt very cool, mm-hmm. Very vindicated, because I was always, I don't know. I just always wanted to be something more, and I felt like they would help me achieve more success. But at the end of the day, quite frankly, none of them did nothing for me. It was more of a facade, because in the wrestling business, and I'm not saying anything negative about any of those guys. They're all, the closest I am to now is probably Sean Waltman. Believe it or not, I'm very good friends with Shawn, but it really, it was just all a bunch of BS. I was just trying to find my place, and they were the real Kliq. They played the game, and WWE marketed it as the game, and it's again something that was legitimately organic and something that was legitimately just real. We were all just real friends, supposedly having each other's backs, turned into corporate baloney, just corporate BS. So, you know, I don't regret it. I wouldn't change it. But quite frankly, it didn't help me.
Well, understand that, you know, two of the members of the Kliq, I had long relationships with. Scott Hall and Shawn Micheals were in WWF in 1990. Me, Shawn, Marty, and Dustin. Everybody calls us the Four Amigos. Where you saw one of us, you saw all four of us. And we were inseparable. When they came to Pittsburgh, I would give them the key to my brother's house. My brother was a set designer in Hollywood. He had this big house up on the hill, and the fridge was always stocked, and, you know, several rooms. And I'd give him the key, and I'd go to my little apartment. I'd say, "Go, Hank, you're home. Make yourself at home." And, you know, you do that for me. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, things turn around and I'm in a position you're coming in. You don't have to ask her. It's done. If you take care of me, that's just the way I am. So I didn't expect Shawn to become the shithead that he did. And the same thing with Scott was that when Johnny and I were together as the dudes, he always had money for pot. He always had money for pills, but he rarely had money for gas or rental car or hotel room. And Johnny would always say, "I'll just jump in with us." You know, same thing about with Shawn. You know, you do that for me, allow me to buy my pot and my pills, and don't expect me to pay for the room and whatever else. You know, I'm going to take care of you down the road. So I dropped my guard with both of those guys because I didn't expect there to be any issues. I just counted them as friends. Kevin and I, Nash, had known each other in '93 in WCW. I always got along fine with Kevin. Same thing with Hunter. Never had any issues with Hunter. And I didn't really know Shawn Waltman. I'd seen him here and there and never had any real issues with him. And I remember one of the first, remember there was like a month and a half period where the Dean character was doing just vignettes from the studio. And one of the first shows that I did on the road was in Lansing, Michigan. Bill Watts was in booking at that time. And they called me and Scott Hall, Shawn Waltman, Bob Backlund. They called us all to the first aid room in the Lansing Arena. And it was a long, thin room. The gurney was turned sideways at the end, and then, you know, a couple cabinets and stuff, like a first aid station. And Scott was sitting on the gurney, and he's sort of playing drums, and having a good old time. A big smile on his face. The rest of us come walking in, and Bill's standing there, and he's got a clipboard. And he goes, "Okay, guys, in the segment whatever tonight, Shane, it's going to be you versus Scott." And he's, you know, talking the whole time. Scott's doing this stuff, and Bill stops about halfway through, and he goes, "Shane, what do you use for a finish?" As soon as he said that, Scott went, stopped beating the drums, and he went, "Whoa." And I remember vividly seeing that and thinking, well, you know, I just had to go out and bump my ass off for him, and, you know, we'll figure something out that makes sense. And, you know, I had been around the business long enough to know, and trained by the right people, that if you start stuttering stepping me or lead-assing me, going up for a slam or whatever, you don't need to do it twice. I know as soon as you start doing it, what you're doing, and I'll just try to overcompensate. But in the long run of it, it's going to make the match look like shit. And, you know, I would think that anybody like Vince or anybody that's been around the business for any length of time would be able to clearly watch a video. I could watch any video and go, this one or that one is causing it. You know, you can clearly see it. And it was pulling teeth that night with Scott. And there was a lot of that up there, a lot of this, like this boo-boo face if like somebody had to do a job or whatever. And then there were like little comments. I remember one night Scott, you know, I was being very careful with my punches and stuff. I did, you know, in ECW we laid stuff in pretty solid, and I didn't want to get a reputation up there and, you know, bust somebody, hard way somebody or whatever, and also, you know, he's the dangerous guy to work with. So one night Scott came back in front of the dressing room. He said, said it loud enough for everybody to hear. And I guess in order to try to embarrass me, he thought. He said, Dean, how's WWF guys? We're every bit as tough as you ECW guys. You don't have to worry about pulling your shit, brother. With me, lay it in. Okay, got it. The next night, I went out and did exactly what we would do in ECW. I didn't stiff him. I didn't potato him. I snugged it like we would in ECW. Never once in ECW, whether it was Taz, Bam Bam Bigelow, or Francine or Bill McGillicuddy, not one time did I ever have anybody complain in ECW. And the very next night, Scott Hall comes back into the dressing room. He goes, Dean, I know what I said last night, but goddamn, you didn't have to kill me out there. I was like, well, which is it? Are you guys as tough as the ECW guys? Because that's how we did it in ECW. Or do you want me to just pull my shit and take it real? I can do either way. And I just remember thinking to myself how embarrassed I was for him that he would do that. Like, you think you're trying to make fun of me in the dressing room, but you just made yourself look like a pussy. And it was clear from then there was a lot of tension, and it was building. Then they had a segment where Vince had already told me and Shawn, he told us together, what the angle was going to be. He wanted to be a repeat of the Rick Rude Ultimate Warrior match, where Rude beat him, or I would beat Shawn for the Intercontinental belt, and then at WrestleMania, it would be Chin Music for the world title. And I was fine with that. It's a great build-up, and Shawn's an incredible worker. Why can't we make this work? So we were in Valparaiso, Indiana, and they put me and Shawn in a dark match at the very outset of the show. Bill was right back at the gorilla position. And 17,000 people. I remember the place was sold out. And we circle around each other. We go to lock up, and right as we go to lock up, Shawn takes a flat back bump, and he's laying in the middle of the ring laughing. And I knew right now Bill Watts was having a stroke in the back. So I looked at him and I said, unless you want to get your ass stretched, you best get back to your feet to fucking wrestle. And he jumped up and he kept going, take it easy, Dean, take it easy. He's just ribbing you. Well, I don't take that as a rib. If you're out in front of, if you want to rib, let's rib me in the dressing room. Rib me at the hotel. Don't come out here in front of 17,000 people and expose the goddamn business, say it's a fucking rib. If you want to do it in your match, you're fine, but don't do it in mine. And so I came back to the dressing room first. I was pissed because every time I'd call something, I'd say like clothesline, I go, the backdrop, and I go, clothesline, goddammit. And the whole match was like that, very choppy. I come to the dressing room first and I was pissed. And Bill Watts, I turned the corner and Bill goes, I don't want to hear, it was the only time I ever talked back to Bill. I don't want to hear a fucking word. I said, talk to your golden boy. And walked right past him. At the In Your House in Regina is when we were supposed to do this.
Winnipeg, you mean?
No, it was Regina.
Okay.
It was Regina. It was In Your House.
Oh, okay.
It's Manitoba, isn't it? Regina, Manitoba?
Oh, no. I think you went to Regina the next night, that tour, because I think Manitoba is Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatchewan. They did Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon after.
Okay, whichever one it was the In Your House show when he was supposed to drop the belt.
Yeah.
I was in Germany on that loop for 3.5 weeks before that. And while we were in Germany, we got this story that Shawn had been attacked by like 15 or 18 or 20 people, some like crazy number. Well, anybody that knows Shawn knows he's not a fighter. So Rick Rude's a tough guy. You knew Mike Hagser was a tough guy. Shawn's not a fighter. Yeah. And so to hear this, I'm like, something not adding up. It took that many people to beat Shawn Micheals up. And we got back, and now remember, we had told both of us I already had the plane ticket to fly in on Tuesday to there, and because Vince, me, and Shawn were supposed to be in to go to work this week on the finish of that match, for him dropping the belt to me, and I get a phone call the day after I got back from Germany from Davey Boy, and Davey Boy said, "You hear about Shawn?" I said, yeah. And I said, what the hell's going on? He said, well, what you heard is bullshit. He said, and he told me the whole story. Shawn was drunk and was getting a little bit forward with a girl that was dating a Marine or married to a Marine. The Marine was there with some buddies, and Shawn got a little bit lippy and mouthy, so Davey Boy and X-Pac decided to get him out of there. As they're driving out in the parking lot, as luck would have it, the Marine and this girl are standing there in the front of the bar. Shawn rolls his window down and starts running his mouth. The Marine grabbed him, pulled him through the window, beat the shit out of him. Davey Boy jumped out of the car, put the car in park, jumped out of the car and came around the car, and all the guy's friends jumped on him. Davey started black eye and bruises and scratches. I get a phone call from, and well, Davey Boy said to me, Shawn's been running his mouth about you the whole time you've been in Germany. I said, what's he been saying? He said, he's been telling everybody he's going to embarrass you on the pay-per-view. I said, well, if he tries, I'll stretch his ass. That was all it was said. And I knew Davey Boy was stirring the shit because I knew Davey would love to rib. So I get a phone call the next day or the day after that, like a day or two later, from J.J. Dillon saying, you don't need to fly in to Regina early now. You can just, come in on Saturday. I said, why is that? And he said, well, there's not going to be a match. Shawn's had a relapse of his concussion. Now remember, I was accepted at medical school, so I know you don't relapse a concussion unless you get hit in the head again. And I said, well, how the hell did he get hit in the head again? He said, oh, he didn't get hit again, he just had a relapse. I went, okay. Ding, the light bulb went on. I got the full picture here. So I fly in, last flight, me and Jim Cornette were on the last flight in. I get to the hotel room with Dustin Rhodes, and I went up to the room, and Dustin had a note on the bed or the counter saying, everybody's down in the bar waiting for everybody. So I got my stuff put away, and I went down to the bar, and the bar was packed, wall-to-wall people, fans and boys. And as I walked in, I saw this. So I started looking, and it's Scott Hall waving me over. And that's strange, because Scott and I weren't exactly buddies at that time. So he told me he's got a seat for me, so I was walking over, and if you knew anything about Scott, was when he's drinking, he couldn't keep the secret to save his life. So I walked over and sat down next to him, and he said, just want to tell you congratulations. I said, for what? He said, well, you didn't hear it from me, but you're getting the belt tomorrow. Now, where I come from in the business, if you and I have an angle, and the only other person that should know should be Vince. Nobody else besides me, you, and Vince should know what's going on to that. And I said, well, I heard Shawn's not working. He wouldn't say anything more. He's like, give me that routine. And so I get to the building the next day. I have no idea what's waiting for me there, but I get to the building the next day, and right as I pull in, Shawn pulls in next to me. Now remember, we've heard this story. He's been beaten up by 325 people. I'm expecting to see him like Davey Boy, bruised up and black eye and that kind of. He's out of the car. He looks fresh as a daisy. Okay, that was strange. So we get out and we walk in, and as I even said something to him like, hey, you had a tough time in Rochester. And he goes, yeah. We walk in, I go left into the dressing room, he goes into the makeup room. About a half hour later, I go to the catering. He comes out of the makeup room, and he's got the contact lens in them. And I made a comment on, well, makeup girls must be tough, huh? And he goes, yeah, and chewing his gum, goes on about his business. I'm like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? So I go down to catering. I still have no idea what the match is going to be. Shawn's not wrestling. How am I getting the belt? And they send for me to go meet with Vince. So I go into Vince's room. Vince always had, like in that case, whatever the local hockey team was, that was Vince's office. So like Vince could dress in the local hockey team's dressing room. But when I walked in, there were no other lights except the one security light in the locker room. So it's pitch black except for this one light over this table that Vince is sitting at. So I go walking in, and Vince starts laying out the bullshit. You've been a fantastic employee, and appreciate everything you've done here. You're so great at getting heat. He's going through the whole thing, and he starts telling me about how, unfortunately, before we even got to talking about the match, he said to me, we believe that the fans should always go home happy. And I said, well, that's where I would disagree with you. I said, I've seen firsthand in my career that a heel going over sometime with some heat forces those fans back next time. And he stuck to his guns and said, well, we understand, but that's how things run here. Like it's an alternate universe, like physics fall up there. And so he starts to tell me what he has in mind, and he said, I'm sure you heard about Shawn, and he's not going to be wrestling today, but so I want you to get out of the ring, and you cut one of those promos you do to get that heat that you're so so great at getting, and he said, then Shawn's going to come down in his street clothes, he said, and forfeit the belt to you. And I went, oh, please don't do that, Vince. He said, why not? I said, my entire career since I've been old enough to understand what I've been watching, I've heard champions say, you'd have to pry this belt from my cold, dead hands. I'll spill blood, sweat, and tears, or it's like a little bump on that, then I'll stand it over to you. I said, if you want, have him come out and chin music me. He can pin me in the middle of the ring. That's fine. But don't do that. That's what we have to do. And now we've been sitting here talking for 45 minutes at this point. Back and forth, he and I sitting from here to the cameras away. Then he goes, then at that point he goes, you know, you take that belt from Shawn. And then at that point, he was like, so I'm staring at him for a second, I'm like, what's he fucking doing with his hand? So I follow his hand down and I keep going. And sitting over here in one of the lockers in the shadows is Scott Hall, who's been listening to this conversation the entire time. And I looked back at Vince and I thought, what kind of fucking game are you playing here, dude? Like, what's the big secret of hiding Scott? Like, do you expect me to say something bad about Scott? If I did that, I wouldn't back it up anyway, or try to say I didn't say it. It was just very strange to me. And he then said to me, you know, whatever finish you want to do. So there's only one that makes any sense. You know, draw the belt. Otherwise, the fans are going to clearly see you were just taking it from babyface to babyface, which does Scott no good. It does Shawn no good. It certainly does me no good. And so I suggested the finish where he pins me. I slide my leg into the bottom rope, and which should have broken the count. It gives me something as a heel to fire back on heat from. Here's my point, legitimate point. And he said, great, we'll do that. But if you go back and watch the commentary, nobody ever comments on it. The camera never cues in on it. It's just typical political bullshit from WWF. The Kliq thing, and like the story you said about
Quebec or Pierre.
Yeah, Pierre.
Jean Pierre.
I guess. Yeah, Jean Pierre. Yeah, you know, is that story is 100% true. Everything I said, and I've said that, told the story for years. I argue with anybody that say they've heard version A, version B, version C. I remember it as vividly as if it was yesterday.
His career never recovered from that, actually.
Exactly, and he had done the right thing. He had brought the house up, and had they done a hot finish there with Kevin with that title, it would have probably doubled the house the next time. Instead, the Kliq wanted it to get their way and got it, and screwed him, screwed his family, and did nothing for Montreal. So, Vince, who did you really help?
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.